No, you shouldn't be here. I'll be good, I promise. Tell him I'll be good, please. No, please.
All right, greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another Infinite Ammo Syndicate podcast. We're talking about Silent Hill 2 Remake today and the transmission that followed. It was a lot of information that came out, a release date, finally, after all this goddamn time. We have the game coming at about October the 8th. You can get it like 2 days early, but finally we know when it's coming out. And it's very exciting. So we're going to talk about stuff we liked, didn't like, things they need to improve, and some of the controversies that we see in the community for Silent Hill 2 Remake. But as I said, I'm your host, Renegade Operative, and I'm going to introduce the panel. So we have Drobit.
Oh, hey everyone. Yeah, this is gonna be an interesting one, since Silent Hill 2 Remake is something I've been very critical of since the beginning. And I got a lot to talk about, especially the recent news.
Next up, we have Black Shadow.
Yeah, some people can just never be happy, can they? No, I'm trying not to be nasty. No, I think on the whole, it's overall good news that we finally learned more about it. I didn't actually think we'd see it until about November, December time, truthfully. There is obviously plenty to talk about. There's high expectations for this game, and that is both a blessing and, I think, a bit of a curse.
And last but not least, we have a new guest to the show, and it is Enigma. Enigma, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Enigma. The two guests pretty much explained pretty well from their opinion what we're looking forward to, but I'm just more excited about the game, exploring things, kind of, getting to the nitty-gritty of so.
All right, and we're gonna open up with the first question to answer. So after the first combat trailer, it was clear that people were very indecisive about Silent Hill 2 Remake after seeing the gameplay, saying it was like unfinished, the animations were weird, the audio was off. Now that we had this new presentation at State of Play for Silent Hill 2 Remake, what is your current headspace on the game? Do you feel more positive, negative? And the first we're gonna have go is Shadow.
It's all really complicated, I think, here. There is obviously going to be a ton of hype, and it has been ever since this game was first announced a few months or so ago now, it feels like. Definitely, I think this is probably one of the most anticipated games of the year. And that's coming off the back of some pretty impressive titles in the general genre that we had, obviously, last year as well. But we are at the problem where there is a lot of high feelings about. There's a lot of folks that have got very high expectations for this game. They want it to succeed. But I think a problem that I think some of us are having is we are getting caught up very heavily in this big nostalgia drive, which has been a part of video gaming since the days of Pac-Man. It is incredibly powerful. It makes you remember things that sometimes aren't quite accurate. And that's the way it goes. But you become very protective sometimes of the memories and the stuff you've had in the past. And I think some of that is perhaps being reflected a little bit now here with Silent Hill 2 Remake. Starting off, this is pretty much the same what happened more or less with Resident Evil 2 Remake. And as far as I remember, that game went okay. Got nominated for Game of the Year, that sort of thing. And personally, I don't think this is going to be a bad game by any stretch of imagination. But when you're seeing stuff and there's like, oh, the models don't look quite right, and there are potentially some issues. Obviously, this is not going to be playing quite the same as it did back in 2000, whatever year was, good 20 odd years ago. It's a long time, but you know, much like with Remake 2, gaming has completely changed since then. It's not the same beast. There are so many underhood tweaks and improvements that you kind of, I think you have to generally look to try and implement the game just to appeal to just a demographic that's used to that sort of thing. But every time you do that, you do go a little bit away, maybe from the core of the game. It's a difficult balancing act, and like I said, when Remake 2 came out for Resident Evil, like I remember hearing all the same sort of stuff, and I was a little bit suspect initially at first, but I was like, you know, trust the process. And that game turned out, you know, pretty damn good at the end of the day on the whole. So I think we'll see probably the same for this on the whole. I can see maybe a little bit of some potential problems from what we did see at the state of play. It was um, not all roses and happiness and unicorns and rainbows and that sort of stuff. There was definitely some things to poke holes at, but I think in the long run it'll probably be okay.
It is your turn, Drill. Since I'm going in alphabetical order, what do you think about this?
I mean, it's better than the last one. I mean, it's not as janky. It did show off more of the visuals. I think the fog looks pretty good for the most part, but at least for trying to replicate that effect on PlayStation 2. Eh, and from what I've seen, the environments don't look bad. I think it definitely feels like it definitely doesn't look bad visually, although maybe it's just me, but I feel like some of the original art style might be a bit lost because when you're in the buildings, they feel like they're kind of too bright, like day for night shots. And if you remember on PS2, it was very dark, not like pitch black, but dark to where the flashlight did serve a purpose. And here it feels like they're just doing it because, oh, well, it was in the original game, so might as well put it there. Honestly, my current like headspace about the game is that it's okay. I think I'm just indifferent. Like, I would need to see the final game, but it's only slightly better than what I had initially. And mainly because I already had a bit of a bias against Bloober. But at least it seems like they're taking feedback, so I'll give them that. And
Enigma.
honestly,
Oh, go ahead. You're unfinished?
but yeah, but yeah, but yeah, my only real gripes is like the atmosphere and some of like the my only real gripe is mainly the atmosphere and some of the art style. Because, but that's about it.
All
Yeah,
right.
and I'm sorry, I'm done for now.
No, I thought because you paused you're finished, but that was my bad. But Enigma, it is your turn. What do you think about all this Silent Hill 2 stuff for the remake? Do you like it? Hate it? How do you feel?
So if I have to go completely off trailer, I'm a bit of mix of both because I as well, from what Shadow said, if I think about the PS2 version and the graphics, the way the atmosphere was versus what they showed, we can't necessarily say or give, as a matter of fact, an official opinion because it is a trailer at the end of the day. Things are still in the works. They can easily adjust, the lighting in the game, adjust the mechanics that we saw is going to be a possibility for us as we adventure deep into it. So I'm in the middle. I can't say that I hate it, and I can't say that I love it. I'm completely biased on just I'm okay with what was given to us after all this time of waiting. But I do have a negative view on the fighting mechanics that they did show, but that's completely separate from everything else.
Yeah, I'm sort of feeling the same. Like I'm not saying head over heels it's a 10 out of 10, it's gonna rock the world or whatever, but it doesn't look bad. I was kind of down on it from the last trailer because, again, some of those animations looked kind of rough. And then I was kind of like being like, okay, this looks kind of janky. I don't know what they're doing. And then I heard,
Yeah, like
oh, God.
oh, sorry to interject. When I saw the first gameplay trailer, I thought this looks more like a fan remake than something that would actually be professional. But I guess my view on it did change a bit. Like it started to look a bit more polished.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way because afterwards, like I talked about this on the last Silent Hill podcast, Konami did release like a 5 minute clip where the gameplay and the gunplay looked a little bit more snappy, and I'm like, okay, this is what they should be doing. Why is it like 5 seconds long and it looks better than everything else? So unfortunately, like I have to bring up this person's name, but Dusk Golem, I remember he was saying that they were showing off like some old footage that was done all the way back in May. So that kind of, raised the eyebrow just a little bit from hearing that. And that's probably why the gameplay now looks a little bit better, because for some reason they decided to screw them over and post some promotional material from an old build, which I don't think was the best solution for them to do at the last event that they had where they showed gameplay. Plus, I guess people weren't really into the trailer that much because it was all action. And as you know, Silent Hill 2 is mostly about, there's combat there. People love the combat. Well, no, actually people will say that the combat was janky, it was serviceable, but they like the story and the characters and everything else. So this one had like a lot more story elements to it, which is probably why people liked it more, because they got to see more of the acting. Which we're gonna kind of get into with some of the later questions. But I think that reason alone is why it was negative, because the marketing was not equivalent to what people liked with Silent Hill 2. We're gonna move on to the next question, and this is, well, the big one because it involves the controversy, but we were talking about remodel faces earlier, and how some of the faces got changed and costumes. So we got to see Laura, James, Angela, and Maria. And what is your personal and final thoughts on those characters? I'm gonna go with Black Shadow first.
I'm so I'm trying to be objective when I come on these casts. I try not to get too taken away by certain things. I think it's very easy to do sometimes. I already mentioned Remake 2 for Resident Evil. Funnily enough, it's actually kind of not that dissimilar. Going back to when I first saw that, and specifically the model for Claire. And the thing was, I was like so used to kind of a general style that like Claire had been portrayed throughout a lot of the series, Resident Evil 2, Code Veronica, and the other games before that. That obviously once the model changed, which part has to be because obviously motion capture and how it sort of works, like it was a bit jarring, and it did take a little while to kind of get adjusted to that. I think there has been many examples of this over the course of various games that have seen remakes and remasters. There's some that maybe haven't particularly deviated. I would suggest that this one probably doesn't fall under that category. But like the guys that make this, they know, they must know, right? They're not gonna like that. There's an expectation of them to look at least reasonably similar to what they have done. Not just in clothes, but in general expression and build. I am a little surprised. It feels like they have deviated more than I would have done, especially like with Angela, and for some reason James really sticks out to me actually as well. I don't know why. I just remember him having a much more squarer jaw than he actually does. I don't know, but it's one of those ones that like the first time you see it, people are gonna look at it, and if it's not like absolutely perfect, then people are gonna point out and say, "Well, hold on a second." But what is absolutely perfect, I think, sometimes is the problem. Everyone's got kind of a different memory, and again, this is where nostalgia comes into it sometimes. Like it's the truth is, kids, I don't think this is actually as big a deal as people think. Like, I get it, it does look a bit weird, and it kind of adds to this general aura of kind of jankiness and kind of unfamiliarity that I think we're getting kind of embroiled into with this game a little bit. But again, like, it's been 2 decades. And when you take stuff from back then and that you take it, bring it into a modern world, like, you're not taking the original source material and the code. I mean, like, that's not how it works. I mean, obviously, famously with the HD remasters, stuff that they ported out to whatever the company was, they didn't give them all the complete code because apparently they lost it, right? Especially with Silent Hill 3 in particular. So that sometimes you just got to build from the ground up, and I do think there is they make a point of not making them. I honestly believe a lot of these developers are either they believe or they are told or directed, don't make them exactly the same as what they used to be, because then it's not remarkable anymore. I think they are, and there is someone somewhere down the chain says, make them a little bit different, kind of update them for the modern age a little bit. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I get why some people may not be too much happy about it, but I do think that on the whole, there are going to be much bigger issues to broil and much bigger details to deal with. Like, yeah, it looks weird. I'll admit that, but I think there are bigger issues.
Drill bit? How about you? What do you think of these faces over here?
I mean, the only real distracting face I had was Angela was her name, the girl you meet in the graveyard, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, it's been a while since I've played. But yeah, I don't know. Her face seemed a bit pudgy, but that might be because of how they're doing it in Unreal 5. And with James, he looked they're at least tweaking him to at least look like his old like his normal model. Honestly, yeah, like I can understand some of the criticism was like Maria not being sexy enough for story reasons. I don't know if that was an artistic choice or something from Konami, but I imagine it can be tweaked with feedback. So at least I'm hoping, like with the models, I know it's not the final version, so I'm at least hoping that they change it. But yeah, the biggest complaints I do have is mainly with Angela and Maria. But honestly, all the controversy just seems like blown out of proportions. Like, mainly just people trying to rage bait. Like that one dude who complained about the nurses when that was from a different Silent Hill game.
Oh yeah.
Not even
Yeah,
close
so I was
to.
about to point out as well.
Oh man, I remember that.
Like they took away the cleavage. That's not even Silent Hill 2. It's Homecoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like, you would have a point if this was a remake of Silent Hill Homecoming, where the nurses are like, I just played it recently as well. Like, I've been playing a little bit, and I actually been like liking it, but the nurses are a little bit more scantily clad in that game, whereas in this one the nurses look exactly like the original Silent Hill 2. So I don't know why that guy, and even Ito kind of called that out and said, I think you're putting in like the comparison of the wrong Silent Hill game. I'm sorry about that.
Again, this is nostalgia, as I said. Like, it warps people's
Homecoming-
memories and perceptions.
And on the off topic, I wasn't a big fan of Homecoming reusing monsters because every Silent Hill's supposed to be personalized for everyone's own traumas. But that's like a whole other issue I have with the game.
I don't like reused Pyramid Head, but the game itself is not as bad as people have made it out to be.
I think it's just overhated.
Yeah, it's just kind of that little, oh, it's a decent little Western Silent Hill game, but back on
hate it.
The problem was Pyramid Head just became too popular.
Yeah, and they clearly overused him to the point where he had to be in everything, which I'm not a fan of at all, so I agree with you there.
But yeah, those are like my only big issues with the game. Other than that, I'm just gonna be skeptical and hope it gets changed in the final product.
Question I want to
That's
ask
all
you.
I got to see.
Sorry, question I want to ask you is this really a controversy?
Not really. It's more of a
Honestly,
non-controversy
it
than
feels like
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
a loud, just like a loud minority on Twitter.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, people saw it and immediately they hit the panic mode button. Oh, this is the worst thing ever, blah blah blah. When I personally think, like, my perspective real quick is that I think it's a symptom of just a bad angle, maybe an unfinished, inconsistent model that they put in there. And this happens sometimes with trailers where it's like, you know, one part they're still touching it up, they're still working on it, and then it kind of looks off, and then in the final game it doesn't look the same. People were posting other comparison shots of like Maria, where she looked like totally fine, Angela looked like totally fine, with certain other shots where she's in the dark especially. So that's what I told myself, like, maybe it's something with the daytime rendering in that game, and it's not doing well in the cutscene where Angela's like in the graveyard, because that's why it kind of looks a little bit inconsistent. I'm not gonna go into the whole big political tirade about it because I think that's just a nothing burger. But yeah, I think it's just a case of inconsistent model, and that's kind of meshing with people and it's kind of throwing them off. It happened before with Mortal Kombat 1, Tanya, all that other stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like probably if you like look through like the E3 demo, like if you look through the E3 demos for Silent Hill 2, they do change, like some models aren't finished yet.
It happened with James as well. Like, James got a completely 100% facial rehaul when you look at the first trailer they put out, like 2022, and you see, yeah, you see,
mean like 2000?
yeah, like yeah, like I'm just talking about like the original teaser trailer that they put out for Silent Hill 2 Remake.
Right.
That one where James's face looked super different. They were like saying, oh, he's older now, so we're going with an older looking model. And then after the feedback, it was like, well, we're gonna revert that back to like him looking younger. So they are listening to what people are saying. So I don't even think it's worth freaking out over if people made enough noise over it. I think they're gonna probably go back and look at that cutscene and fix it. As for Maria itself, I did have a problem with the way she was dressed now, because in my personal opinion, the first thing I said when I saw it was, this is Ashley Graham from Ari. That's kind of how she looks to me. She looks a little bit more innocent, which is not Maria. Maria's supposed to be like a little bit more seductive, kind of mysterious in a way, because that's kind of how she's molded, because James has this like sort of impression where he sees his wife as a little bit more sexy, because originally he hated it because she's on her deathbed. So I do think that's a little bit off, but I also think maybe they're going in a direction where she seems innocent at first, and then slowly, because when you play the game, slowly when she keeps getting in situations where she gets captured by Pyramid Head or killed or whatever, that's when she gets a little bit more seductive. Stuff starts changing, it starts seeming weird. So if Bloober Team goes in that direction of my headcanon, then I would totally be okay with that, because it'll feed into the looks can be deceiving thing, which I think would work perfectly with the game. But it does remain to be seen. And there's also the fact that there's Born from a Wish, so we don't know if we'll get her classic costume or not after beating that.
That is my theory. I reckon something they never really got to play around with very much in the original game was kind of the, like characters kind of changing. And that's something the Silent Hills never really had much to be able to do with. Even like in Silent Hill 3, it was very limited. Kind of the characters kind of changing sort of appearance wise as you go along all that much. I reckon that's what they're going to do with Maria.
Yeah, and if they do that, that'll be completely fine. I'll be all for that. It'll show progression, and it kind of even happened with Resident Evil 2, where it's like, we see Ada in this dumb trench coat. Everybody complained about it. They were like, oh, where's the signature red dress? And they were saying this for like literally months and weeks before a trailer came out where they show Ada in gameplay, and later on she takes off the trench coat, and what is there? A red dress. So I think maybe there can be some lessons learned from these controversies before we freak out about original costumes and whatnot. Let's just see what the game offers, and if anything changes, because we've been down this road before, then I don't think that it'll be anything to freak out about if you see, oh well, here's a more sexualized Maria, and I think I'll be fine with that.
Yeah, as I say, trust the process just a little bit. These guys some of them have been doing this for quite a while. Like we're not expecting necessarily miracles. I just think some people can get very hasty sometimes.
Yeah, and I can understand like a lot of it is passion. That's where it comes from. But I'm gonna wrap up my part. I don't have too much to say about Laura and James. I think they personally look fine. James probably looks the best out of everybody so far. So whatever you're doing, Bloober, keep it up. The only thing that I kind of miss, it's a little bit of a nitpick, but I miss like the patches on the coat where he used to have like the weird army jacket, but it's not a deal breaker. It's just something that I missed from the original game, and that's it. So I'm gonna move on to Enigma. What do you think of how the characters look and this whole Angela business? Can you?
What can I say? You guys pretty much said everything.
Oh no, sorry about that. It happened.
No, I completely enjoyed it. My personal take on the situation is I don't have a problem with their models. Like you said, James probably looks the best out of everyone. Although I do honestly prefer PS2 version of like how his facials were, his mannerism, like his body language and stuff. They actually caught a lot more of his character on the PS2 version, surprisingly enough, versus this. It seems like, yeah, they did revert his age from an older man to a younger version, but it still looks like they kept that mannerisms of an older guy. Like they didn't change anything. Angela, like what you said, I'm not even going to begin to get into that. To me personally, Angela has history without giving out any like major spoilers. She's a victim, and so I don't think her looks is what's important to drive the game forward, like how a lot of people kind of put it out to, be on the internet. Laura, just I don't know that because she's a child, it seems like they kind of went over the top with the child aspect in the trailer of the transmission that they gameplay trailer that they showed.
Mhm.
Her character arc, from what it looks, just doesn't sit right with me personally. And as for Maria, like you said, starting off, she's not so seductive in the beginning of meeting and stuff. And we all know what Maria is supposed to represent, going into the game and later on. Maybe the trailer showed us beforehand, and somewhere down the line, when he meets her again, if they do what they did, she'll be different. She'll show a more seductive side. They did show it in one of the trailers, her laying on the hospital bed, I believe, where she reaches for James' hand as he's walking away. Maybe that's her change in her character arc, once we get to that point of the story. But I don't know. I'm a little less satisfied with the characters so far, just based off of the trailer alone.
All right, so we're gonna move to question number 3, and that's like mostly some of the scenes that they showed with context and some of the vocal performances that we heard. What do you think about like some of the voices compared to the original? And I will go with Shadow first.
I don't have too much to add, really. I mean, I think they're pretty serviceable. Again, your margin is going to vary a lot. If you think they should have basically ripped the lines from the original Silent Hill 2 game, then afraid you're not necessarily going to be particularly happy. I think they're generally okay. Like, again, it's just part of having to get used to it as new. Again, it's as I said, just like 2019, Leon sounded weird and Claire sounded even weirder hitting on him at that gate. But after an hour, you kind of get used to it, and then you're down to the game and the graphics and what's more going on. I think they're okay. Nothing that's particularly special. I don't think to write home about, but it doesn't have to be.
What about you, Drew? Drew.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, Angela's just seemed like not good to me. It definitely felt like a big step down from the original. I don't know what it is, like maybe the direction or a miscast, but she just felt very amateurish, if that makes sense. Like
Um,
it doesn't really come off as someone who's like disturbed or traumatized.
it well, it feels like it's a bit more like, because she had this sort of, and it goes with the character and the victim thing. She had sort of like this childlike complex, where you could tell something was off, and in this one, it seems like the actress was trying to go for that, but she missed the memo. And like you said, it could be the direction, it could be voice cast, but that was one of the voices that I really wasn't feeling when I listened to that trailer. But I was telling myself maybe I'll just give her a chance and see what happens in the other key scenes that she's in, because near the end of the game, that's where that character really starts to break the mold, and show what truly happened to them.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, like Angela's was like the only one that really stood out to me being not good. Like everyone else's is serviceable. But yeah, but yeah, Angela could have just been so much better, and it feels very underwhelming. Like it probably wouldn't ruin the experience like with RE4. Well, like Ada's was like the only one that I felt was just bad, objectively bad, but at least not enough to ruin the game for me.
Enigma, what about you? What do you feel about the voice work so far from what you heard?
Uh, uh, James so far is the best, and that's not really a compliment. um, Angela, I have to agree with Shadow, and sorry, I'm bad with names. I have to agree with, yeah, true bit. Just Angela is a bit underwhelming, where you don't get, again, this is a trailer, so maybe they weren't going that direction of, hey, I want you to know exactly what this character is supposed to stand for, represent, or something. But nonetheless, it was still kind of underwhelming. Laura's character, same thing. Like I said, not only was her outbursts and stuff like a little too much for the child. I'm not saying that she wasn't all over the place in the original, but it was more like there was motive with the things that she did in the original. Versus this one, it was just more like a child throwing a tantrum and okay, well, since you're not gonna listen to me, well, screw you, you're a big me. It was way too much. Maria, same thing. She's more cool, calm, collected, and honestly, I would have to say that's kind of unsettling that she's shown to be the cool, calm, collective one, because uh, it's not the character that I grew up and got to know. So whatever the direction is, it's a bit confusing, which I'm pretty sure that as well is kind of what their plan was. Like, hey, yeah, it's a remake, but it's not copy and paste. But the characters are supposed to have a certain aura to them, a certain energy, and I don't think that the characters here in the trailer showed that or represented that. I feel like something is missing.
All right, so I'm gonna give my opinion. I'm a bit positive on what I heard so far. I made a video on this talking about my thoughts, and my first impressions from there is going to carry over here. I said to myself, in terms of like terrible voice acting for Silent Hill 2, I think the worst thing was hearing it in the HD collection, which I've played recently, and I told myself that is where the voice direction and the voice actors really missed the mark, because it just seemed like they were trying to make it very, very professional, you know, make it sound as good as it possibly could be without understanding the nuance of the characters. And I still think that that is the worst interpretation of Silent Hill 2 voice wise, especially hearing the end where Troy Baker has that surfer voice and you hear the Maria ending and you hear what he says. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe it. He ruined the tone of that completely. But this new guy for James is fine. I think he is fine. I think he gets it. I've listened to the interview where they talked with their voices, and I think he gets it, where he was talking about how he wanted to do James as more subdued, which is good because that's kind of what they don't do with Silent Hill 2 HD Collection. It's like, it's just very, very illustrated as a performance, but there is things that need to be worked out with other characters. I believe what they did is they said James and Maria so far sounds the best, and then everyone else is kind of like weird. I know, I don't think Laura sounds like bad. I think the problem comes from the writing of that scene and how she's sort of like, first she's willing to let James out, and then it's kind of like when he insults her, then it's like, oh, well, I'm leaving you in here. Screw you. As opposed to this, where it's like, well, I'm going to leave you in here. You stay in here, even if the guy is saying there's something in there with him, which should raise alarm, but she doubled down on him and left him. So it's just a case of a little issue like that. But it's not bad voice acting. It kind of reminded me of RE2 when I first saw that, where it's like some people were like totally fine for what it was, and it was, you know, more or less fine. Maybe a few things like stuck out like a sore thumb, but like nothing that really bothered me, so to speak. That's kind of what they're trying to capture from these scenes that I'm seeing. It's like, damn, I just feel like they're trying to do an RE2 sort of emulation with how they handle some of the voice acting, the scenes, and getting things across as a modernized remake. So everyone else is fine except Angela, I would say. I feel like she missed the mark, but again, I will give her the benefit of the doubt because her key critical scenes aren't really till the end, and during the whole thing with Abstract Daddy, that's where things really start to kick into a high gear with this character, and you get certain revelations that will honestly surprise you. So that's what I think. I'm a little bit more optimistic, but I can understand where people are kind of coming from with certain aspects. But again, they could always go in there and fix stuff, because I was even amazed that they decided to change the entire face model. I feel like that probably cost Konami money to do that upon Bloober's request of the feedback. So if they are willing to do that, I'm pretty sure they are willing to touch up some voice acting scenes and see what they could do with the other characters. I am curious though how they're gonna do Eddie, since we haven't seen him in any of the presentations so far. It's the question that everyone's asking, where's Eddie? Because he was not in any of the trailers that they showed yet. He's the only other human character they have not revealed yet, which is very interesting. So I can't wait until they actually show him and we have something to talk about with that character. So that's what I think about that. Anything else before we move on to the next question? Anyone else want to chime in on anything real quick?
Abstract Daddy. Spoiler.
Oh yeah, I didn't go into what he was.
No, I know.
But I did say he is part of a big revelation within the game. You have to find out what that is. But yeah, I just said during my reaction, I can't wait to shoot it like 5,000 times, because that's what I'm gonna do. And it's some gameplay touches that I've noticed as well that's gonna be fun to point out in a later question. But we're on gameplay now, so let's do it right now. So let's talk about the gameplay. It's a lot to unpack from the trailer that they showed us, like a 13-minute presentation on the Silent Hill transmission. But let's get right into it. I pasted everything in the document, so if someone wants to point something out, you can do it from there. Shadow, I'm gonna pick you first.
Lucky me. This is what I said at the start of the at the start of this, that I think there were a variety of bits and pieces that obviously weren't present in the original game that are just quality of life things that have been included in this one because it makes sense. It makes game experience easier. Stuff like the map being changed, which to be fair, like that obviously did exist in the original game, kind of editing the map as you kind of experience things. But I do think it's kind of a bit more fluent. Stuff like obviously dodging, blocking from enemies, stuff like that as well isn't a big sign. Isn't a big surprise, just to say. Sorry, put my teeth back in. And obviously, much like when you have a lot of these remakes, the chance to kind of expand upon the locations that already existed makes total sense. We've seen this in everything, from Resident Evil to Dead Space to all sorts of things. When Silent Hill 2 was made, like the rest of the series didn't exist. So now you have the opportunity to add in all these extra bits of lore. And I suspect you'll see in this game probably there'll be references back to Silent Hill 1, and I expect there'll be maybe one or two things dotted about that might have a little tiny reference to Silent Hill 3 coming on down the line. Wouldn't surprise me at all. You've got this whole big lore storyline that you can kind of explore. Although, of course, this is James' personal adventure, of course. It's still Silent Hill, and people like Easter eggs, so I'm sure you'll see some bits and pieces dotted around. Other than that, obviously a lot has been made of the kind of the general fighting system as a whole and kind of the third person, which is, you take it or leave it a bit. I'm not surprised it is what it is. Again, this is partially existing because Resident Evil remakes did pretty darn well. They're like, well, if they can work it, then probably so can we. So obviously they're going to use that as a general model. It's just like when Resident Evil 4 came out in a way where it came out and people were like, oh, this isn't quite right, and then give it a few years and every single person in the universe was using that as a general model for how to play their games. So I'm not too surprised about it. On the whole, I think there's a lot to optimistic on this front though.
Drill, what about you? What do you think of this? Whoa, wait a minute, did I cut out?
No, I heard you.
Oh, okay. That's weird then. I guess I'll go with you, Enigma, since both of them are muted.
No problem. We're talking about the gameplay now, correct?
Yeah.
Whew. So the gameplay, as we were saying earlier about it, the UI being customized to our liking, it's not really a big issue. It's cool. Something, added to the experience. James doing things in real time, basically, to add a bit of a realism. Again, personally, I don't really care about that stuff. Like they have to nowadays. What kind of more caught my attention, in my opinion, is that from where it started when the trailer of James, I believe if I remember correctly, he was on the east side of the South Vale, and
Yes.
then he saw the little blood splatter on the floor and stuff. Going into like the next area, them changing the intro to you fighting the lying figure, instead of it being in like some rubbish area, it's inside an abandoned building instead. Cool little change of scenery, why not? But all that leading up to Brookhaven, a lot of it, I got The Last of Us vibes for the entire thing. Like I would have loved to compare it to Resident Evil Remake, but it was more Last of Us than anything, mixed with like Callisto Protocol, which not really a good game in my opinion as well. But the battle was clunky, as I said before, the same way it was in the earlier trailers when they released it. It's better than it was, but it's still not. It still doesn't look appetizing to the eyes. The battle system just seems very, very clunky and not appealing to me. The nurse blocking one of James' attacks is pretty cool. It gives you an idea of like, hey, a straightforward attack isn't going to always work. You're going to have to, at some point in the game, start coming up with ways to fight each creature, maybe you know, like a little snippet of like what's to come possibly. You know, the dodging in the game, I that too is it's a neat little mechanic that's added in, but nothing too over the top. Them expanding some areas, you know, that I would expect that. Um, you seeing James visibly hurt, that's another thing that's it's okay. It's nothing serious. It's just a little something added into the gameplay to make you feel like you're immersed if it's, you know, good enough to have us immersed into the game. But besides all that, the ending to it, where they showed you a quick snippet of the abstract daddy, that was probably one like the only thing that kind of really caught my attention, as well as the gameplay trailer that they showed, the official gameplay trailer. The cage creature, it looks like a cage creature coming down from the ceiling when he's trapped in the room after Laura locks him in. That one, I guess, pretty cool. Again, nothing big, nothing huge has happened, nothing's really different. It's just some quality of life changes that they pretty much did for the game. I'm not seeing a wow or a, you know, fucking, you know, blow me up out of my shoes type of thing that they gave us. It's great, but it's not the best.
All right, so I guess it's my turn until Drill returns. I'm gonna go over this.
Could I do mine real quick, because I do have to do something super quick, real quick.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Like, it's nice changes, but nothing that's like wow. I mean, a dodge is nice. I'll give them that, and adding more realism with the map is cool. Although I think they already did that in the original, where James would just scribble in stuff. Like, it was even there in like Silent Hill 1.
Yeah, I mentioned this, but it was a bit more cumbersome, but it did exist.
Basically,
Yeah.
it was there. It was a thing that was there where if you find a location, you will be like zoned in on the map or something like that, and you'll see the character mark a piece of the map. It wouldn't be in real time though, so this time around they just kind of did it where it's like now the character does it inside of gameplay and not at the map menu, which is a little thing they did. It's a little change, but it's still different.
Yeah, I will agree that is nice to have. Honestly, the changes aren't bad, albeit it still looks, albeit combat is still a bit janky. But who? But then again, it could be because Bloober probably has never really done an action game before. So there's also that. And showing James is visibly hurt is cool, I guess. I mean, kind of like the RE games. I wonder, does he still get tired if you like run for too long?
We don't know because they've only, like, when they showed all the sprint, it was mostly done in like 3 seconds. There is a sprint in the game, but we didn't see the full capacity. But I
would
assume,
imagine the answer
yeah,
yes.
I assume that he still gets tired if you hold it down for like way too long.
Yeah. But honestly, yeah, I would need to see the final game, but I guess the changes are fine, though nothing like amazing or groundbreaking. Like, I would say the melee combat was probably the worst thing about the Silent Hill 2, so there's that. And showing the monsters fighting back more is cool, I guess. But honestly, I really don't have much else to say.
All right.
So yeah.
Well, I guess it's my turn. Well, I'm going to be honest, and you know, I might get some hate on this segment, but I'm gonna be real and honest with myself. As we always say with Silent Hill, combat has never been the strongest suit, and when they decided to do better combat in Homecoming, people hated it. So in my personal experience, it's always been a toss up of, if I want the best combat in survival horror, the direction I'm looking into is Resident Evil. So I have no qualms against Bluebird whatsoever for trying to enhance the combat decently. But there are some things, as we talk about here, is like some things I really liked and some other things I kind of felt iffy about. I think mostly in my reaction I said that it still looks kind of weird how you shoot the shotgun, and I don't know if it's the shadows or something, but it looks like James looks like just an unedited piece of pastrami. I don't know what it is with that shotgun animation, but I didn't like it. As for the combat itself with the pipe and everything, I do like that the nurse can sort of take it and be like, all right, get off me, because I think that push and pull of combat where you just can't get free hits is something that ruined Homecoming, where it's like I could just roll and do a 30 hit combo on a nurse and she can't do fuck all to me except for a grab, and that's it. I could roll out of the way of that. Whereas this one, they said that while James is an everyman, sometimes the dodge can be unreliable if you use it poorly, which I think is going to equate to the situation we saw in the hallway where the player was like fighting 3 nurses, and I told myself, I don't think that you could just do these perfect dodges forever. If you're not paying attention, you're going to get clobbered, which is what happened to James when he went into the other side of the hallway. He's fighting like one nurse and she beat the holy tar out of him. That I like. I want a sense of urgency with the combat where it's like I can obviously do stuff, but I shouldn't feel invincible while doing it. There should be someone coming behind me, or if I'm making too much noise, that might be a detriment. And then I told myself, hey, as a Silent Hill fan, can I do things like if I cut off the light, maybe no one will see me, or if I make too much noise, they'll come to my location. There's a lot of things going on that they could tweak to make a very suspenseful experience. And everything else was just standard, like, oh, you can now have a gun out simultaneously and you can have your pipe as sort of a secondary weapon, so you can just go in, hit someone with a pipe, and you can shoot them in the leg. And I thought that was a lot more dynamic than what we usually see. I think that's good. The dodge is par for the course. I did think it was weird though that people were like, oh, why is it that a mentally ill man can dodge? I thought that was initially funny.
When people not read the news, I mean, for goodness sakes.
And that, and also not noticing the Silent Hill 2 OG does have a block. It is a block in that game where you can block attacks. I was doing it while fighting Eddie because I kind of got tired of him running up on me and trying to punch me. So I do think that, yes, it is in the original game. And the original location is being expanded upon. I think the first one we saw is that diner. And I was like, well, I don't remember us ever going into a diner in the original Silent Hill. There was also like some school buses as well, where the like sort of lion figures are coming out from the buses, and they said that like in the original you could go to these school buses and it would be inaccessible. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe they're going to put in some elements where they remove one of those buses and you go in and maybe explore, and it could be like a miniature school segment or whatever. That's pretty cool if they decide to do that, because that's something we never had before. But it's like Enigma said, where it's like, it's par for the course. If you've played some of these remakes, it's what you would expect them to do at this rate, which is not groundbreaking, but I guess it's nice enough to have to say, hey, that's kind of great. But it's what's to be expected. And same with James being visibly hurt, although I prefer it this way as opposed to the little red cross and the OG just flashing there. And I know people hate the fact that you can have these like very red borders on the side of the screen and it looks distracting, but they said you can turn off the UI elements with some things in the game, so it will tell you where to go, what to do. Personally speaking, I would like that off. I like the real survival horror experience where I feel lost. it's cool that for casuals, if they want that to be on and say, oh, I don't know where I'm going in Silent Hill, it's great that it tells me on screen as opposed to looking on the map every 5 seconds, which I guess can annoy some people, but I will probably turn it off knowing me. But it's nice to have like options and features and all that stuff, so I'm never really like against that stuff, especially if you need it, because you never know. I overall, the gameplay is fine. I don't hate it, and I also do get the fact of it's not something that has blown my socks off yet. But again, I also feel fair in saying that you never know until you get your hands on it, because I always think it's an experience is different playing it than actually watching it. So I could be like, oh, this is activating my neurons, actually getting my hands on it, as opposed to just watching a trailer and going, oh, well, that's okay, that's fine. It could work probably better than I would realize or know. So I'm gonna reserve judgment on the rest of the gameplay until launch. And I will say, as like a final bit, it looked good seeing the new Abstract Daddy boss fight, because the area is bigger. It's not this small miniature room where I want to throw myself out of a window because I know he's about to attack me. That's one thing I actually did not like about the original. I'm not really the biggest fan of that fight, because I felt like the way it was designed was very, very weird. And every time it's like, oh, I kind of feel bad for people just casually going in there thinking they can no damage them, because it's just not probably happening unless you're really, really good at the game. So I'm glad they gave us some space, some things to work with. It feels like an actual boss fight with some thought this time around, which is pretty cool. I want to see what they do with the rest of it, but that's how I feel about it personally. I can't wait to see more, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. Anyone else before we move on to question number 5?
I just want to double down real quickly. I'm not saying that earlier about the whole fighting mechanic thing, that it has to be like superb or exactly like The Last of Us, because again, I still feel that's the inspiration that they're taking.
Yeah.
Because James is supposed to be, he's not a combat specialist. He doesn't have military experience in his background and stuff. He's just average Joe coming into town, and he is expected to do what anyone would do in that same situation with no fighting experience or little to no fighting experience. You grab the first thing you see and you start swinging. But to put that out there, to not sound like earlier I was just like, no, screw it, fight mechanics bad. He fights as you would expect him to fight, but I just feel with clunkiness, again, if they were to spruce it up on Last of Us, it's the same shit. Joel is an old man as well. He's also a regular average Joe. Of course, in that scenario, in that universe, he's done some questionable things, as you find out as you progress in the game. Like, he was part of the militia, the coalition and stuff. And
spoilers.
Yeah, he yeah, right. Joel did some questionable things to survive in that universe after the infected got spread around, but he's still an old man at the end of the day, and he's not in his prime as we have him in our control. So he has to rely on pipes and wooden boards and stuff, and anything he can grab his hands on. So it's the same thing here. I feel they could make the mechanics smoother, because yes, also what you said too about the original Silent Hill 2 game on the PS2, it was the same thing, kind of. His fighting style wasn't great, but he at least was able to, you saw it. He stood his ground as he swung, like he put his body weight into it. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm looking too deep into it.
Oh, but no, I get what you're saying. I guess I'll clarify my stance, then we can move to the next question. But yeah, I agree with that Last of Us proposal, where it's like it feels like fine-tuned in terms of making it every man fight or whatever. I totally agree with that. Where I come from is, and this is why I use Homecoming as a comparison, it seems like Silent Hill fans are generally okay with the game feeling clunky in terms of the original mechanics. And
Yeah.
they always said that the story and presentation was the thing that stood out the most. And to me personally, I'm just like, well, when they decided to put a lot more emphasis in the combat with Homecoming, I think people hated it because it felt OP. And that's kind of the line you have to walk with survival horror games. It's either going to feel like it's a game where the enemies are fighting back or giving push and pull, or it's going to feel like an action horror game where people will say this kind of ruins the thematic and aesthetic because my character can do like these insane iframe dodge rolls and not
Oh,
get
yeah.
hit or anything. So I can see why Bloober is walking a fine line. It's either going to be great and fit in with the aesthetic, or it's going to be poor. But one thing I did like that they mentioned is that they said all the original action difficulties are coming back. Same for extra riddle for the puzzles, the hard modes. So I think if it's like, if people want to challenge themselves, and I
yeah.
felt this way with Homecoming, where it's like, okay, it's too easy on normal. I'm sorry, I can just beat everything to death. But I put it on hard and it was much challenging. It felt like a survival horror experience. And I think if they balance the game to have adaptive difficulty, then that's probably the best solution they could make, is that it's difficult, fun, and rewarding when you're actually fighting these enemies. But I'm going to move on to the next question. So this is question number 5. Now, I find this surprising after what we talked about, but the 2 Team Silent members who are on the team working on it, which is I think it's Akira, who's the composer, and Ito, they actually wanted to make a lot more changes to Silent Hill Remake, but Bloober Team is the one who said, no, let's try to be as faithful as possible to the original game, expand some elements, but not change too much. How do you feel about it that original members are literally telling them to change portions of the game a lot more, but Bloober Team is like kind of resisting and saying no? Shadow, you go first.
Yeah, it's not the way around you'd expect it to be, is it? Obviously, you'd normally think it'd be the old guard saying, "Oh, you should probably have it used to be," and then the new lot saying, "Oh, that's right, I'll be able to change it." But yeah, kind of curious news. Not what I was expecting. I'm not surprised that there has been kind of a split between like how much to change it. There always is with this sort of thing. So there has to be some change, 100%. But the question, of course, is how much, and that's never very easy to define. So that was not a surprise, but no, definitely not the way around you'd thought about it, would you? You'd for sure. Very, very strange. But again, not surprised that there was some division which way it should be, and I still think on the whole they've probably done a reasonably okay-ish. I mean, there's you can't change how the place looks very much. You can't change the story particularly, and you can't really change a lot about the characters, but I feel like what they've probably got a bit of leniency and a bit of agency in tweaking about. I feel like they've done, probably about there or thereabouts.
Yeah, I feel the same. Where it's kind of like, I'm kind of surprised that, because again, it's like the old guard, the people who don't want change, or they don't want their babies touched, because usually like 9 times out of 10 people will be like, I don't want this change because this is already like a masterpiece. You would figure that the ones who would be validated in saying that is Team Silent. Like Team Silent will be the ones to say this, but hearing that is a little bit jarring, that it's like they're the ones who wanted a lot more change. And I guess maybe they were looking at it from an aesthetic of how Resident Evil is like a complete reimagining, and how it's mostly just, it is more or less the same sort of theme from the original game, but so much has changed from the gameplay, and they added in so much lore, and it tends to work. Like it worked the best with RE4 Remake and RE1, where they decided, hey, we're gonna interconnect these storylines together and see what we make, and same for Remake 2. Whereas probably like, all right, maybe we need to do something different as opposed to the typical 1-for-1 of everything, and see if we change something and that would be received well. But as someone said in a Silent Hill video, and I'm going to repeat the same quote here, he said that Silent Hill, like, fanatics, like the main people who are super protective of Silent Hill, they are the most pedantic motherfuckers you will ever see in this lifetime, where it's like you change one thing and they will take you down to the mat. And it's something that you will probably see a lot on our Silent Hill as well. Shout outs to them. But it's true. It's like they are the most adverse to change more than Team Silent, which is something that I never expected to say ever in my lifetime on this earth as a Silent Hill fan, but it is true. So that's quite interesting. I have to say, I guess hats off to Bloober, because if they would have said this, you better believe it would have been like 5,000 videos saying, look at how much they're changing and ruining the game. I guarantee you, in an alternate timeline, you would have saw that everywhere, and people would have pointed to that article saying they are validated in the changes that they are against. It's like, oh, and now we have something to point to. So I totally think that would go the other way around if it was an alternate timeline. But it's kind of putting things into a little bit of perspective. I kind of want to see how I think you need team members to give push and pull on what is needed and what is not needed in order to make this work, because this game is, once again, people see Silent Hill 2 as the best one, so I think you need creative in there to tell you what works and what doesn't, even if it is the old guard. Team Silent has said themselves, and I hate to be a buzzkill, I'm going to end it here, but they said it themselves that they do not believe that if they brought the band back together, that they would probably not even make the same type of game, or they would be good at it, because so much has changed. And I think that's just sort of admitting, hey, the age, things are different now. The way games are coordinated is different now, and it's not the same as it used to be. So I don't even know if it would be good. And I guess that's maybe a little bit of hubris, them like sort of admitting that, but at least they are honest, as opposed to lying in our faces. So I give them the benefit of the doubt there as well. Drill, what do you think about this, where some Team Silent people are saying, hey, I don't think we would make a game as great as Silent Hill in the modern age, or them saying that we wanted more change in Silent Hill 2 Remake?
I think he has deafened.
Oh, well,
He has a deafened icon on.
that sucks. Who did you go yet, Enigma?
No. I mean, I don't really have much to say. Surprisingly enough, I'm on Kira's side for this one, because as much as I agree with Bloober not wanting to really change anything, like, yeah, you don't want to. I say this a lot, and I stick by it. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But we do still see that there are changes just from the trailers alone, and how much of that change is from Team Silent and how much of that change or stayed the same from Bloober, we don't know officially. But to say that it's bad enough or not okay or a little off-putting that Team Silent members want to like kind of do more changes, I have to side with Akira Yamaoka, because Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, and 4 are his babies at the end of the day. Those, like, he composed the music, he was the producer, like he was there. So I believe he knows what would have worked, even if he is a bit out of touch, out of date. He's not 100% sure what people would like now. I feel confident enough that if they were able to allow him to change some of the things that maybe caught his attention, we probably would have had a better trailer and or reveal or something along the lines regarding this. But we know that he's not in the seat of producing like he used to. So, but just that, pretty much. I'm adding on to what you guys already said. I feel if they did, just me personally, I would have much preferred some of the changes that were brought to the table, because maybe it would have been better. But because we don't know that as well, I could be wrong. Maybe this is the best we're going to get, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of a wait and see affair before anything is really validated on our end. We still have to wait until release date and play the game and see how it is. I Now I'll just say this point to sort of end it off on. I think it's this push and pull because there are people who don't want to play the same experience if they've played it like 5,000 times already. This is sort of the internal struggle that happened with RE4 Remake, where one side, which was M2, they wanted to make a one for one and be like, we don't want to change that much. We want to make the same game that was done in like 2005. And Capcom was like, no, they figured this would not work out too well. I think the best approach is to change stuff with a reimagining and do some different areas and add in things and do things differently. And for that game, it turned out to be a success because it sold well, reviewed well, and to some people, it wasn't really too big of an issue. But I understand, I guess, when you go back and forth with modernizing something and holding something dear to the classics. I know I sound like a broken record, but it is like walking a fine line between what works and what doesn't. And I think there's probably like a lot of things that don't really work out too well from the original that need to be reworked. Like it's a lot of stuff with Pyramid Head that probably is going to be fine-tuned if you get to that point in the game and you witness it in the original and you see there's certain mechanics where it's like, yeah, I don't think that will really go too well in a game for 2024. I'm wondering how they're gonna fix that and fine tune this and alter that. But at the same time, you don't want to change it to the point where something loses its complete identity, I guess, is what people are going back and forth with. And that there's no one understands that better than the creators, which is what I personally agree with. Like, I do believe there is pushing and pulling there, but I also think it is a collaboration process, and ultimately them figuring it out will be the best result in the end if it's done right. So I'm holding on to that, and I'm gonna see how it goes. I'll give them a shot. I think they deserve at least the benefit of the doubt. So we're gonna move on to the movie. Thoughts on the teaser for Return to Silent Hill. This was part of the, well, it wasn't part of the Silent Hill transmission. No, it was, but they didn't show this teaser trailer, which was weird. It's more like a behind the scenes thing from Christoph Gaines. If you saw the trailer, what do you think about it? Shadow, I'll start with you first.
Boy. I suppose the first question that should be asked is who. This isn't being rude. Who kind of asked for this?
Oh man, those are interesting. I'd like you to elaborate on that.
Well, I don't know. It's just video gaming and movies made of video gaming have historically not had a good history. To be fair, there's been some stuff lately. With like stuff obviously with like Netflix and whatever else. They've actually not been too bad, some of the series over there, based on properties and licenses that I have no knowledge of, so I won't be able to comment particularly well, but I heard they were pretty good. I was very surprised when I heard about this. I thought my first thought was my good friend Mr. Paul Anderson come knocking by. Turns out apparently that isn't the case, but come on, that'd be at least worth it. Like, it'd be a laugh, it'd be a good stream, get some beers.
Yeah, just laughing at James doing like 5 backflips on the skateboard would be absolutely hilarious to me.
It would be curious, but I don't know. It's I was just very, very surprised to hear that this was going down, for sure. I think it's probably a bit of an unusual spot for Jeremy Irvine, who's going to be playing the role of James. I think it's a tough gig. It's not easy. Maybe he can manage to make something work. I know that they obviously done the filming and whatever else, but yeah, I was surprised. There's no date has been announced for this yet, has there? I don't believe.
Nope, it just said coming soon. That was it.
Coming soon, so maybe some point next year. Yeah, I mean, obviously these are not the first Silent Hill films. It wouldn't be probably fair to judge this one compared to the previous ones. though maybe that's me just being generous. So to be fair, just the TLDR, I actually think the first one was actually kind of okay-ish. There was some interesting bits to it. The second one was like, give or take, I suppose. Yeah, I say good luck to them. I think it's pretty bold. I think it's kind of brave, and I fear it might not be great. It's, we've seen the Resident Evil stuff as well. Like, these are difficult mediums, I do think, and obviously, like anything, when you bring something that already has this deep intrinsic lore in video game, you try and bring it to the big screen. It's really hard to do that. There's significantly more cases of projects that have done it and have come out and haven't been received particularly well compared to the ones that have done, which is a bit of a surprise when you think about it. Places and people still keep trying. I do think the hit rate is probably better than it used to be, but I don't know. I'll wait until I see a little bit more of this. I wish them luck in the world, but I think this is going to be a difficult sell.
Ooh, yeah. Oh man, I don't know. It's very, very interesting that they want to get back in the movie space, and I do believe personally it's intention. They're making a Silent Hill 2 remake. They want to make a Silent Hill movie. Transmedia marketing goes hand in hand. If the game does great, then maybe more people will flock to the movie. If the movie does great, maybe that'll bring in a completely new audience to Silent Hill, which is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're trying to do both of those things at once. So I get it. If you're gonna put light on your IP again after being so dormant for like fucking years upon years, then you're going to want to do something like this. So I can't really knock the hustle. At the same time, I'm not really liking the fact that they some of the stuff that this James, like, it feels like he looks even lesser than with this original counterpart. It sort of gave me the same, and I said this in my reaction, it gave me the same vibes as Welcome to Raccoon City, where they decided to make Leon look like Carlos for some weird reason, and I thought it seemed very lazy. Can't you give the guy blonde hair or something? I don't know.
We don't talk about those, please.
Yeah, I have to bring it up as an example though. You get me, right? It's just like crazy. Like, I don't understand why they didn't do that. But the aesthetics looks nice. I like that they got the nurses to come back, the dancers that they showed in the presentation, where it's like, oh well, we're gonna do these like creepy movements, and that was something that I really liked from the original movie, because they looked menacing and creepy at the same time. I'm sure the monster design, the city, everything else is going to be fine, but in terms of them adapting the story, I think there's going to be probably parts sliced out. They are fitting all this down into a 2-hour runtime of a movie, so I'm sure there's going to be some shortcuts taken, which is, I mean, it is going to make sense. They're going to take the easy route with some things, and I kind of hope they don't. I kind of do at least hope in the short time that they have, they explore the deeper routes, or they leave some subtlety in there, because that's what made Silent Hill 2 into Silent Hill 2. And I believe skipping past that, because of the movie format, is gonna kind of, ruin it in a sense. I hope I'm wrong though, because I could always be wrong. I do think someone made a good point where they said, I think this could have been a TV show, because they could have fit more into the paradigm, which is why The Last of Us worked so well as a TV show, because they decided to give it a lot more time to breathe and let those moments like sort of sing, as opposed to a movie where it's like you kind of gotta wrap it up a little bit. So here's hoping the best. I do like Christoph Gaines, and I think he did phenomenal on the first one for what it was, and the second one, we could just bury that in a ditch somewhere with the ET copies and everything, because I fucking hated that movie. So that's how I feel about Return to Silent Hill. It's another wait or see affair, but I'm hoping they squeeze as much in there as possible. Enigma, what about you? What do you think of the Return to Silent Hill teaser and the premise itself?
I feel like they really try to justify it by saying that there's going to be differences in the movie compared to the game. So immediately they're setting expectations. I think Jeremy Irvin, who's playing James Sunderland, if you look his name up and you see his picture, In real life, he looks more like James than in the movie with that wig or that that they have on him. Um, Mary, I think was Hannah Anderson that's playing her. That white wig that they have on her, or whatever the case. It just, I don't know. The aesthetics for the characters don't look good, but usually I do like the first Silent Hill movie personally, as its own thing. It's kind of like the same thing with the Resident Evil trilogies that they made into movies. I like the first one when it came out. It was, oh, here's, what happened in the facility of Umbrella. You have this little side story. It was cute as its own thing until they came out with Apocalypse, and then it went downhill from there. So first movie for Silent Hill, I actually liked it. Second one, I didn't even know there was a second one, quote unquote. Whatever.
You don't want to know.
exist.
You really don't
Yeah,
want to know.
we don't have to know. Yeah. And Return to Silent Hill, being that it's pretty much Silent Hill 2 in movie format, I don't care. I really don't. Like, I'll watch it, if to see what's different, if they added extra lore or whatever. It's kind of the same thing if when they do it with any other game to movie or whatever. But other than that, I don't really it doesn't pique my fancy at all.
All right, like I said, it's I want to see what happens with it, and I wish it nothing but the best. I wish it success, and hopefully it does bring in new fans of Silent Hill, because it's kind of needed after being dead for like so many years. But in terms of what they could do from a quality aspect, it's a wait and see affair. But hey, we'll be doing a watch party of it in the server, so you definitely will know our opinions on this channel as we go along. I guarantee you.
God have mercy on us all.
Yes, we had fun with the first one, but my God, the commentary for the second one was so hilarious. I don't even know where to begin. But we have to move on to the last remaining questions here. Now, as for the transmission itself, we didn't get to particular things. This was mostly like a Silent Hill 2 showcase, but Silent Hill F and Townfall was absent, and I wanted to get some quick opinions on what you guys felt about that. We'll go with Black Shadow.
Not surprised, but still disappointed. Obviously, this was going to very heavily focus. I was not disappointed. I don't believe there's any skateboards. I think that was the real tragedy.
Oh, yeah. They have like a new jacket though for James. I forgot to bring this up, but
jacket schmack here. I mean,
Oh yeah.
once Leon's came out, how can you possibly care about James's? No. No, I wasn't too surprised in a way. I had a feeling beforehand that it was going to focus pretty much solely on Silent Hill 2. Of course, they have obviously mentioned previous stuff going before, but I imagine that majority of their focus has obviously been on Silent Hill 2 Remake. And I expect the reason they probably didn't give much information for Silent Hill 4 Townfall is just they probably don't have very much new information for it, which is a bit sad, I suppose, especially with me. Like, I think Silent Hill F could be really, really interesting, something quite different. It might not be that much at the end of the day, but I just think the general idea and concept of it, I think, is super cool, really interesting, and quietly, I'm quite looking forward to whenever that sort of makes an appearance in down the line, hoping that it still does, of course. But Silent Hill 2 makes all that people care about, and the honest likelihood is that if they had made announcements for like Silent Hill for Townfall, would people really be talking about right now outside of stuff like this? Probably not very much. All the discussions going to be about about the remake. People say, "Oh yeah, there's an F game coming." I was like, it doesn't matter. Silent Hill 2 is more important right now. So I suspect it was probably a mix of they might not have very much to talk about, and also anything they do bring out is probably just going to be completely lost in transmission with everything else that's going on. So fingers crossed we hear about that maybe a bit closer to the time. Whenever they give up, they will do something more, I'm sure, for Silent Hill 2 closer to its release date, maybe in like sort of September-ish, maybe August, September, around then, and perhaps then we might hear a little bit more about these projects, but not a particular surprise. We didn't hear too much this time.
yeah, I feel that same way. I'm not surprised because it's been a lack of information on Silent Hill 2 Remake, and we've been sort of just trying to get some grip on when this game was coming out for the masses. I get that they wouldn't be ready for Silent Hill F and Silent Hill Townfall, but I can also see how it's kind of disappointing where it's like it's been 2 years later and we haven't seen another trailer or another behind the scenes in development, because they were surefire to put that there for the movie, even though the teaser was like only 30 seconds long. And I also think that the way this rollout has been for news and information and this revival of Silent Hill has kind of been a little bit of a misfire, because look, I'm very glad we're getting Silent Hill 2 Remake, and I'm very glad for the other two games. I can't wait to play them either, but I don't think we needed Silent Hill Ascension first for anything in any universe. Now that I look at, like, when I look back on this, it just feels like, no, please, for the love of God. I think they could have handled that a little bit much better in terms of getting content out there for people who really wanted it. So I think in that regard, I can see the slight misfire, but if they make it up with these 3 titles, I'm not going to complain too much. At least we got what we wanted, which I can't be too mad at, but I wish it was done in another order. And I wish that order led to a trailer F, because I think F is the most interesting one so far in terms of like new ideas, where Townfall, it's no sort of indication of what that's going to be. But I'll remain curious. I'll play it if it's like a full-fledged video game and nothing like Ascension, absolutely. So I'll check that out for sure. I just can only wish the teams the best, and I think they're hunkering down developing the game right now, which is why nothing is being shown. Enigma, how about you? What do you think of them not showing Silent Hill F and Townfall?
Honestly, it's okay. I'm actually looking forward more to Silent, surprisingly, not surprisingly, because from the looks of it, when they released Townfall, it literally says in the short trailer, you know, from the creators, or, you know, something from the stories untold and observation. And going by those 2 games, those are like first person puzzle, you know, chapter episode, you know, episodic type of games, which means Townfall for me isn't going to be something that I'm looking forward to if it's literally going in that same direction of it's going to be episodic, or, you know, first person of like exploring areas and stuff, and then we wait and see for the next one. Versus F is immediately gave me like a Fatal Frame kind of vibe that I absolutely, and that's the one that I'm more disappointed of that they didn't show at all. But besides that, I'm okay for now that they didn't show anything, since this is kind of a big deal for Silent Hill 2, and I'm gonna say it, and I'll probably get hate for it, but Silent Hill 2 has huge shoes to fill, you know, following the route of Resident Evil remake. So, go ahead.
No, it's completely true. You know, it's the obvious, the obvious path they're following, and that comes as I said at the start. Like, all this has all happened before. You know, back in 2018, we heard all the exact same things about Remake 2, and I was a little bit suspicious at the time. I wasn't 100% sure. I was like, I'll see it play through, and the game on the whole, I think, widely, not for everyone's taste, but I think for the vast majority of people, it was at least very enjoyable, if not a really, really good game. And those couple of things people were worried about, you know, beforehand, very quickly evaporated. I do think this will probably be similar to this. There might still be some nagging things here. I don't know. There's a very, very high bar that is being set itself because it's Silent Hill 2. It's regarded as one of the greatest games of its generation. You know, and of course, Ben Yarchi-Grosho's it's a personal favorite of his, of course. I'm sure his trip on Rambo-Matic will be very interesting to see when he does that back in October. But, you know, that's what they decided to do. You know, they didn't have to do this, and that's not to say that they shouldn't be making a remake of Silent Hill 2. It's not a surprise. They were going to do a remake of Silent Hill, the original trilogy, eventually. Should they have done 2 first? I don't know. Ultimately, I don't think it really matters. We're here now. But yeah, they are You know, if they don't get this right, they will very much know about it. I can't imagine they won't get it right, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's I see that sentiment where it is like the main enchilada, so to speak, is Silent Hill 2. But I mean, I guess it's interesting to me to see how these other two pan out because they presented them there, and like I said, I wish the rollout was like kind of different in the sense where we got a little more of that, or maybe like they could have done like a sneak demo or something like that where it's like, oh, we have a demo here to present to you or whatever. But I understand it's crunch time at this point. It's buckling down and getting Silent Hill 2 remake done, so I think that's the most important. But hopefully after this, or they announce something like another transmission in the future where we talk about these games, because it's only going to be a matter of time before Silent Hill 2 is here, and then it's like, well, we have 2 other games to release. What are we going to do? I think we're going to hear something around Halloween time where it's like, oh, we have a special presentation with Silent Hill F. We're going to go ahead and show that off, and that'd be like really great for people to look forward to something maybe next year. So I can't wait for that. In the question we're on drill, we're talking about Silent Hill F and Silent Hill Townfall not being at the transmission. What is your opinions on that?
Honestly, I had a feeling they were in early production and weren't going to be ready. But F seems interesting. It's from the guy who wrote the Higurashi When They Cry. Oh, if anyone knows who that is.
Yeah, people were talking about that guy, a big storm, and they seem to really like him. I guess seeing him make a story will be cool, and the aesthetic is nice that they're doing some sort of Japanese feudal Japan looking Silent Hill, which has never been done before. They mostly stuck to the city.
It's like in the 80s or something.
Well, yeah, but it's still something that's never been done before.
It's not the first time he's done it. Higurashi took place in the 80s. I think he just likes that time period.
No. I meant for like in terms of Silent Hill, we've never seen a setting like this before.
No, I'm surprised Resident Evil doesn't do it. They were gonna do it with Sengoku with Onimusha, which was gonna be a feudal Resident Evil.
Yep, and then we never got that. We got it in a sense.
Silent Hill. Oh, to quickly speak on Return to Silent Hill. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like that it's mostly practical. The original director's back. Although James actor is mixed, like they couldn't get the guy to shave his facial hair. Like that's like the thing that bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, I made a comparison and said it looked like Leon from Welcome to Raccoon City, where it's like they didn't shave him, they didn't give him the blonde hair, they just said, hey, fuck it, be as scruffy as possible, and it just didn't look like the character. I'm sorry. It's like,
honestly, the look was the least of my issues with it.
I know,
I just hope they don't butcher James's character.
Yeah, I know, but it was, to me, in terms of not getting the aesthetic right, it was just one of those comparisons I had to make.
Oh, like, this is interesting because I remember you said he didn't use James in the first Silent Hill because he thought that the mother-daughter connection was much more, like, he thought that made more sense than having it be father and daughter.
You mean Harry?
I kind of disagreed on.
You mean Harry, yeah. It's weird, but hey, I mean, Sean Bean was in that movie, so I guess you could say it's somewhat of a cool thing.
Yeah,
if you like him.
Seeing Sean Bean be Harry Mason killing monsters would have been cool, though.
I agree with that.
Yeah, but honestly, I hope we do get a full trailer and release date soon, because it looks promising.
But we're going to move on to question number 8. This is about the collector's edition. It's just a small little routine thing here.
The Ubisoft chart.
Yeah, the Ubisoft chart. I'm going to let Shadow go first since we're going in order here.
No skateboard. Next question.
No skateboard. That's a great one, actually. I like that.
Yeah.
But that's your real answer?
Yeah.
All right, then. So I guess
no, of course not. No. I mean, I'll be quick here. Like, I'm too old and cynical now to really ever get hold of the deluxe edition stuff, and like I try not to pre-order games really either. Like, unless it's super giant games, which case sure they can have all the money they want. Man, yeah, they can just have a check. I don't mind. Um, some people like this sort of stuff. I do like that you can get the luxury and get like an art book sort of thing. I guess that's about the only thing I'd be interested in. But yeah, like your masks, your in-game charms, bits and pieces, and that's whatever else. The one thing I suppose that does probably warrant some discussion is the 48-hour early access for deluxe edition pre-ordered. Dear, I don't. Honestly, I kind of hate it when companies do this. Like, you're already forking over so much money for something before you don't even know what it's going to be, and then it's like, oh, if you give us loads of money, we'll let you have it 2 days early. It's just like, I don't know. Like, I thought video game had got beyond this. Like, is it just me here?
Yeah, I see why people have a disdain for it, because I listened to a lot of videos on this topic before making this podcast, and one guy was saying, he was talking about criticizing Silent Hill 2 Remake, and he said something paraphrased to the effect of, oh, you better believe I am going to criticize this game if I find something wrong with it, because I am paying beyond $80 and I'm a streamer. So you have this competitive price point where we have to, shill up more in order to play the game early. And I didn't fully agree with everything he was saying, but I get where he was coming from in the fact that, yes, it is going to be a competitive price point for some people to play the game early and be the first ones to maintain either some viewership or something to that effect, or get their review out because they're doing this. And to Shadow's point, he also said, like, we don't even know what else the game is going to be, so will it even be worth getting it 48 hours early? Maybe that's why you slap this incentive on here. I don't really like it, and I feel a little mixed on it. Like, I really want to get it early, and that's the temptation right there, is to get it earlier than most people, just to play it for like 2 extra days. But some people,
a dodgy business practice. That's what this is. It's not particularly at Silent Hill. This happens a lot in a variety of different pieces. It's just, I just don't think this is very, like, how is this any good for the consumer?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I mean, like, it sounds, oh, you're getting it early. I mean, in the grand scheme of it, does it really matter? I mean, given the amount of day zero patches and the era they're in, do you really want to be playing a game that won't see any day zero patches until 2 days after you start playing it? The amount of complaints you get with all these games. To be fair, single player stuff isn't usually as big a deal, but you think like a big massive multiplayer thing, and it's like, oh, go to play it a week early. It's not playable for that week. Great, you've just forked over like $150. Hope you feel intelligent now. It's just, I just don't like it when companies do this. It just feels kind of really, it just feels excessively greedy and trying to bait it in, and it's not even for like the standard edition pre-order. It's specifically the deluxe pre-order. What is it going at actually at this moment in time?
Right now I think it's $80, but they have the gold flare there because that's the one where you have to pre-order the game and get it at $80.
Yeah, it's just, I'll be honest, like, I mean, if you want to get the deluxe stuff, like, just get it when it comes out. Don't endorse this. Don't encourage this sort of behavior. It's not right. It's not good for the consumer. Don't make this a thing in this. There's enough things wrong with the gaming society sometimes as it is, and this sort of thing is not helping. So please do not encourage it. If you're that desperate to play this game, that early, I appreciate you for your desire to get involved in it. Trust me, those 2 days will be fine. You'll live.
Yeah, I think you can simply wait. It's not anything it's not the end of the world if you decide to get this game like either 2 days early or not. Like, you could probably wait for it. If people want to go out and get it, I would say, I'm not trying to like lord over people's wallet, because that's something I don't do. I don't like when people do that to me, and I won't do that to other people. But personally speaking, I'm very much on the fence about this. It's like, yeah, part of me wants to get my review out there relatively quickly and be like, sort of, hey, I have it early, I can tell people about the game. But another part of me is just kind of like, I could probably wait for like 2 extra days. I don't think it's gonna kill me. So I'm in a 50-50 bind with it, and it is company incentive. I told myself two things. Number one, I like how RE does it, where they give you like a couple of extra neat bonuses, like maybe a additional soundtrack or whatever for $10. It's just like whatever. And they might give you a couple of guns and things like that for the upgrade. I think that's relatively fine. I got all of those through that way because I wanted the classic soundtrack and everything. I feel like more incentives is kind of, if you're gonna do that thing, just give us more. Like I said, maybe give us the original game. I feel like that's a loss in translation thing with remakes now, where if they make like an updated version or updated version of a game, they don't give you the original. I remember Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, they gave you Mortal Kombat 2 if you beat the game, and you just had to pay retail for that, and that was it. We don't get much of that anymore. So I think if the developers really want to throw a bone, they should go back to those days instead. You get these masks. You got Robbie the Rabbit, Mirror the Dog, Pyramid Head looks like a pizza box, and it's nothing mind blowing at all. It's not something where it's like I don't think that I want anything else but the early access, and that's it. So yeah, it's kind of a lackluster package when you really think about it. Outside of that to date thing, and that's it. So yeah, I don't blame people for feeling the way they feel at all. Enigma, what about you? What do you feel about this?
So like you, actually, I can't even say I'm 50-50. I really don't care personally, because this is kind of the same situation as, other games, like I'll say Destiny, for examples, that every year they release a annual pass. You got people that hate it, you got people that love it. I personally look at the situation as it's justifiable just a little bit, because if you're working and you're getting paid every week, bi-weekly, whatever the situation is, and you're playing these games or you're making time to play these games, you should have enough money to purchase these things when they come out, if you truly want to invest your time and enjoy it and support the company and stuff. Like I'm not gonna tell anyone, oh yeah, you should definitely do it. Yeah, like, if you fucking love this, I'm sorry for my language, but if you love this game so much, if you're a true fan, you better buy the biggest one they have. No, I'm not gonna say that. You don't have to get the freaking deluxe edition. You don't. You're fine for the 48 hours that everyone else is playing it on Twitch or YouTube or whatever. Like, personally, I wouldn't mind getting the masks, but then again, it's like, do the masks do anything?
No.
I go and I go to what you said about Resident Evil remake, where if you buy this, you get the original soundtrack, you get some in-game stuff that actually does something for you. And so if all I'm getting is some masks just to have a mask, 48-hour early access, and a digital art book and digital soundtracks, I'm better off just waiting. So when it's officially released on the 8th of October, I'll get the digital deluxe, the deluxe edition, because I personally want the art book. I personally want the soundtrack. The art book is going to have a whole bunch of stuff that was, made by Masahiro Ito, and I love his art design. So, just to have that, it's cool and a victory to me personally. But I don't know. I'm more of a, if I have the money and I decide to, I probably will get the deluxe edition pre-ordered just to get everything out the way. But if I don't get it by the time it comes out, I don't get it. It's not important.
Oh yeah, I totally get that. To me, it's like I'm sort of being on the fence about it. It's like, will I or won't I? And the ultimate decision probably going to come like in September, near my birthday. If I get like some extra birthday cash, why not, is sitting there. If I don't, and I'm just like all tapped for September, then I'm just gonna move on and wait till the base game comes out. It's just gauging an option, really. And I know people, I think Shadow's point was really good, where he said, oh well, some games came out it's like before day one, so you never know what could go on there with the modern gaming landscape today. And I remember Suicide Squad did that incentive where it's like, oh, you could play the game a couple of days early, and it wasn't working for some people. So that's kind of a thing to be worried about, which I understand why some people do that. But I don't know. For me, it's a wait and see affair. I guess I'll wait and see, and it's not really the end of the world otherwise. All right.
If I say if companies had like a specific like version of the game and say, all right, this you're paying exclusively to play this game early, you know, like you're getting nothing special, no extra bits and pieces on the side, you know, no art book, no stupid milestone else. You're paying literally only to play this game early. It's going to cost you an extra $10 to get it like a week early than anyone else. Fine, I guess. If that's what you want to do with your money, sure, go ahead, be part of the cool club. But like putting 48 hours early on their most expensive thing, basically only, and you have to pre-order it as well. I mean, just ain't right to me.
Yeah. I don't blame people for how they feel either way. I think it's totally fine. It's ultimately up to the person with what they want to do. Me personally speaking, it's just kind of like, will I, won't I have no clue at this time, and I feel like that's a good thing. That's a good thing to be undecided until it gets close to launch, and then I'll decide what to do from there, because I still want to see more with this game, and I do think they're gonna probably do like another presentation, another trailer, and that'll be it. But most of the core gameplay and impressions are kind of out there, so all they can do is probably show a little bit of Eddie, and that's it. And that's the last thing I expect to see. We're moving on to the last question, actually, and given what you know about the game at large, it's like a final thoughts or whatever. Do you feel that Konami is going in the right direction with this resurgence of Silent Hill, and what steps they need to take to better the franchise going forward from here after seeing all the gameplay, trailers, presentation? What would you do? We're gonna start with Black Shadow first.
It's a tough question because we don't. There's probably a couple answers to it. I mean, it should be under no one's surprise that this is happening. You know, when they made the announcement of Silent Hill 2 Remake, you know, I wasn't astounded. I mean, if anything, I was surprised they hadn't done it sooner. Really, given that Resident Evil had been, you know, Resident Evil 2 Remake is 5 years old. Think about that. That game is 5 years old. Like that's an absolutely horrifying thing to think about, personally speaking. That just makes me feel so decrepit. Like I don't want to get out of bed anymore. Like just put a bullet in me and be done with it.
Oh, if you think that's bad, wait until the rumors swirl around about the remakes and stuff. I can't wait until we get into that era. That's going to be something.
The remake of the remake.
This is a complete quick tangent here, but there was a video that was shared to me on a site that told me how Grand Theft Auto Vice City, it's longer between now and when the game is made from when the game was made to when it was set. And that game was set in the 80s.
Jeez.
Think about that. That is a horrifying thought. Anyways, going back to this, I do think that probably by the end of it, like I think they will get a lot of good reviews for this. I just can't sit here and imagine the game being bad. Like I just can't imagine it with the sheer amount of people and resources and manpower and just pure money that they are surely putting at this. Like I just can't see with. You know, I'm sure rounds and rounds of quality assurance testing and, you know, getting people to give it a spin. Like, there might be some personal tastes and preferences that you may or may not like about the game when it comes out, but I just can't see it being, like, really, really good. That sometimes isn't always, like, what it's about, and I do think back to my time with Resident Evil Remake 4, which is a game that I said at the time that, like, I was a good game, really well put together, you know, technically really, really strong. But for me, like, it didn't feel quite of the same ilk that it was prior. I talked a bit about, you know, like, I felt like it didn't really have a lot of the soul of the original game. I'm not going to go back to that conversation, but I do remember being a little disappointed by that. You know, when the game let its hair down, I thought it was at its best. And I did say at the time, like, this game will be nominated for Game of the Year and it won't win it, which is exactly what happened. So I will be taking my 20%, please. But I don't know if this is going to fall into the same traps. Silent Hill 2, Resident Evil 4 are two very, very, very different properties, even though that they weren't made all that far away from each other. What, maybe 2-3 years apart, if that? Not much when you think about it, which is also frightening. Um, I don't know. Like I can't see this game being bad. I suppose the question is it going to be kind of worthy of the banner and the standard that the original set? And that's a hard question to know. Does it have to be compared to a game that was made 20 years ago? That's debatable, but it will be. The same for Resident Evil 2 when it came out, same for Resident Evil 4 when it came out. It's just the way things go. If you make a remake of something of a game that is widely accepted to be like a really, one of the biggest titles of its generation, you're going to be held to those sort of standards, whether that's fair or not, and they will know that going into this. I suppose we'll see a little bit more when it comes out, but I think as far as like what they could do going forward, I suppose the big question will be if/when this game gets a decent reception. The next question will be, well, what's next? Do they go forward or do they go back? I suppose that's a problem and a question for another time. I've got my theories. I still think they'll do 3 before they do 1. I just think they will, personally speaking, but who's to know? I think they should probably just, assuming this goes pretty well, probably just stick to their guns. Take some focus, obviously, for the other projects going on, and just, I think their priority is just to make sure that this is received as well as it humanly can. I doubt there's that much time left to make them edits. I mean, it's beginning of June. The game's due out in 3 months. There's not too much they can change between now and then, so it's kind of a case of fingers crossed, really. But the proof will be found out at the beginning of October. We'll see where we're at.
Yep, that's how I feel. Drill, what about you? And what do you think they should do moving forward, proving that if this is a success or not?
Honestly, just go back to basics. Make like Silent Hill games that are more similar to like one, 2, and 3, and not trying to chase trends. Maybe keep it in house, or at least with a good team. Also re-release like all the old games. It's so crazy that RE and Silent Hill have no modern ways of playing it outside of broken ports. So they could easily satisfy those set of fans by just re-releasing them.
I mean,
Without
I'm
having
sure like a
ridiculous
detailed
prices.
Google search will set you fine. By the way, just want to throw that one out there. Carry on.
Yeah,
You finished,
yeah,
Drill?
but yeah, that's what I would say. Just go more back to basics. That's really the best way to go from here. And also maybe revive a few other dead franchises like Suikoden and Castlevania. Oh, and also Contra.
Oh man,
And
that's a huge
and that's
asking price. What about you, Enigma? What direction should they go into next, proving this is a success?
If it is a success, I would prefer them to go into the direction of Silent Hill 3, as that's one of my personal favorites, over 2. But I kind of feel like if there's a possibility that they might pull the rug from under us and remake 4 before they remake 3, just to fix all the issues that was wrong with 4. But again, personal, if they don't do 3, I would love to see part 1 get remade or remastered as well. I absolutely love like the school section in that game. I feel part 1 absolutely set the tone for psychological horror, and it's a PS1 game, mind you. So it was absolutely one of the most amazing things for its time. But I don't know. As far as what Drobit said about Castlevania as an option, I mean, I don't see that happening anytime soon, since they're doing a collab with Dead by Daylight. as like the next chapter coming into that game in August or September. So that's definitely not something on their list. Though I would love to see a Castlevania game.
Like, at
With like,
least do like a smaller scale one, like Rebirth, where
yeah,
they just make a 2D one. Hell, just
yeah.
have Way Forward make another 2D Castlevania. I think that would be at least satisfying.
Oh, a side scroller. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing something like that. Uh yeah, that's pretty much my thing. That, and I have to back up what Shadow said this whole time. The most important thing that has been overlooked with Silent Hill, and that's more skateboards.
I knew that shit was coming up.
That's all.
All right, I'm gonna break it down the same way you guys. I'm gonna say what they should do as Konami, the company, for the future. Like that's not Silent Hill related, and then I'm gonna talk about the Silent Hill related stuff. So not Silent Hill related. I definitely agree with reviving stuff like Castlevania. I think we need to see, a sort of release date for Metal Gear Solid Delta, because I'm pretty sure, like, we've seen that gameplay. It looks absolutely great, and I heard internally it was delayed till 2025, but yeah, we need to see some more of that, because that looks pretty stellar, and it seems they're going in the right direction with Metal Gear. Castlevania, it's like Drill said, they could focus on maybe a smaller side-scrolling project and slowly build their way to some sort of big revival, but that's kind of what I would like to see, as well as like classic series, Contra, all that stuff come back. They'll just take swings and keep things consistent, because they've been out of the game for so long. I know this is never gonna happen. I know it's never going to occur, but my dream for them is to mend the bridge a little bit with Kojima. I know it's never gonna happen, but if they
keep dreaming,
it's just a man dreaming, but if they did that, that'd be at least some goodwill restored on that part. Like, I'm not even saying like go work for them, whatever, because I know that ain't happening. I'm just saying a little handshake here or there would be sort of like nice for the consumers and the gamers who want to see some peace. But moving on realistically to like the Silent Hill stuff, they've already started their Silent Hill production team, which is interesting. So it seems like they're probably going to go back to doing things in-house, and I want to see what they do with that, and if that means outsourcing is out of the picture now, or what. That's the most interesting part to me, because it possibly could happen. And if they do something like that, it's just like Shadow said, what is the next thing moving forward if this is a success? And I kind of see Silent Hill 3 as well, but if I had it my way, I'd be like, they should do it like the Max Payne remake, where it's Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 3 combined into one game. That would be pretty sweet, because I think Silent Hill 3, in order to like really understand that game, is pivotal to know what happened in 1. But I think for the sake of making something next, if they want to stick with Bloober and say, okay, we have an engine here, we want to cut a corner a little bit, then they could easily just do 3 and say, hey, 3 has a reused asset of Silent Hill in there anyway that was similar to Silent Hill 2, so let's just do it. So that cuts development time down like significantly. But still, it's a lot more combats and a lot more intricate nature with the weapons in Silent Hill 3, and that means that Bloober has to get a lot more creative with that game, which is going to be kind of interesting to see. Outside of that, just I think what they should do is, look, if you're gonna make trailers, please stop putting out old builds of gameplay, because that makes people sort of skeptical of your product. And Konami was in charge of the marketing rights this whole time, so it's no excuse. I think if you can make Metal Gear look amazing out of the gate, and you can't do that with Silent Hill, there's an issue. So they need to correct that going forward in the future, have better rollouts, and I think better communication is better communication would mean better things going forward. Their interviews have been great so far, and I would like to see a little bit more of that hands-on with the audience and the people. And I think that's it. I'm not asking for too much, just one little dream, and that's it. Everything else is just like standardized. And that is the end of this podcast. We had a great time talking about Silent Hill and then illustrating our nuanced opinions and what we liked and didn't like. And I think it went pretty well as a cool discussion. So thank you guys for coming on once again and vibing with me. It was a pretty fun time. But we're going to sign out. We're going to do outros. So, Black Shadow, where can we find you?
You can find me on over on YouTube at Black Shadow 993, also on Twitch Black_Shadow_993. We're trying to sort of get back. I was not too well a while ago. We're getting back into doing content and streaming, including it might be happening next weekend actually, 15th, 16th of June. I'm attempting a Millioni run for Silent Hill 3.
Oh,
Bad decisions, poor decisions were made. I've done Millioni runs for the first two games, and they were pretty wild. And I have managed to get Silent Hill 3 up and running for that. But yeah, I'm going to attempt to beat the entire game on hard difficulty with only melee weapons. Some of it should prove interesting. Let's put it that way.
I think things are going to get interesting with the boss battles because you kind of have to get up close and personal with them. Especially Leonard. That's gonna be a very interesting fight. Let me know when you stream that.
I'm thinking more of the freaking final boss fight. I mean, there is a known method with that, but yeah, Leonard as well. There's a variety of issues with this. Let's just go with that.
Drill, what about you? Where can we find you on social media, buddy? Drill,
yeah, you can find me at Drillbit777 on Twitter. I'm not gonna call it X, but that's where I'm really only active on.
What about you, Enigma? Where can we find you?
In the darkest pits of hell. No, you guys can find me over on Twitch Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and I'm trying to add Saturdays to my schedule, but as of lately, not really working. I usually give 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time as like the go-to. Sometimes I end up streaming early before that. So Twitch Enigma_Avian. You guys shall see exactly that.
And you can find me on YouTube at Renegade Operative. You can find me on Twitch at Renegade_Operative. I noticed that they released the stuff for Alan Wake 2, which is the Night Springs DLC. So I'm contemplating on buying that and checking it out and sort of giving my opinion on that since I played the full game. So you might see me play that as well as some other games. I'm currently in the process of making a review for Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is extremely long overdue, but I'm finally getting around to it. So I'll let you guys know what I feel about it once that is written out tomorrow.
Oh.
But this is the Infinite Ammo Syndicate signing out. Hopefully you guys had a good time with this podcast. And once again, take care of yourselves. See you later.